You ever notice how everyone has that one friend who swears by some holy grail health tip? Like, bro, you gotta drink 8 glasses of water a day or your organs will literally shrivel up. Or the classic, I never skip my daily multivitamin, keeps me healthy all year. Yeah, about that. See, a lot of these tips started out with good intentions. We didn't have TikTok or PubMed in our pockets back then, so people took advice and ran with it. But here's the thing, some of that advice, it's like a medical zombie, it just won't die. And in some cases, it's not just outdated, it might actually hurt you. So why are we still hearing this stuff? Who's keeping it alive? The supplement industry, old school doctors, that one uncle who forwards health newsletters. At 3 a.m., by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why these myths keep coming back from the grave, what modern science actually says, and how to make smarter, evidence-based health choices that don't involve overpriced vitamins or gallons of unnecessary water. But now I'm curious, what's the worst health advice you've ever been told? Drop it in the comments. I promise the best L or worst one might just end up in my next video. If you've ever wondered where these common medical myths actually come from, let me tell you, they're not born out of malice. Most start with good intentions and a dash of outdated science. Honestly, it's kind of like economic myths. You know how people still say just print more money to fix inflation? Same logic applies when someone tells you to take more vitamins to boost your immunity. Simple, comforting, and completely missing how the system actually works. Take vitamin C, for example. The whole vitamin C prevents colds idea came from research in the 1970s that was misinterpreted faster than a bad meme. A couple of studies found a tiny reduction in cold duration, but the effect was so small that it barely mattered clinically. Still, the headline, vitamin C prevents colds, spread faster than the common cold itself. Thanks to supplement companies realizing there was serious money in bottling immunity, that's where the corporate marketing machine steps in. Once a myth gets marketable, it's over. Suddenly, every commercial is promising immune boosting, or detoxifying, or fat burning miracles, terms that sound scientific but mean absolutely nothing. Detox is my favorite example. Your body already has a detox system. It's called your liver, kidneys, and lungs. If you needed a juice cleanse to survive, humans would have gone extinct centuries ago. Then you have the fat-free craze from the 1990s, another outdated health advice epidemic. Researchers once thought all dietary fat was bad for the heart. Cue decades of fat-free cookies, fat-free yogurts, and fat-free sadness. The problem. When you take the fat out, you have to replace it with something, usually sugar. And sugar, as it turns out, didn't do us any favors. It's like cutting your cable bill only to rack up Netflix, Hulu, and Disney subscriptions, different labels, same outcome. Even the classic just rest prescription for everything is a leftover from old school medicine. Sure, rest is vital when you're sick or injured, but for things like mild back pain or depression, modern science says gentle movement and exercise can actually help recovery faster than staying in bed. Yet the myth persists because it's easier to sell rest than nuance. A big culprit in keeping these myths alive is, frankly, the way we communicate science. Studies are complex, but headlines need clicks. So a small study finds possible link turns into scientists prove green tea cures cancer. Boom, instant misinformation. And the next thing you know, your aunt is texting you articles about the miracle berry that will extend your life by 40 years. These science communication mistakes are everywhere, and not just in tabloids. Even reputable outlets oversimplify to make the data more digestible. The problem is, once you lose the context, you lose the truth. It's like taking a quote out of a conversation. It sounds dramatic, but it's missing the point. And yes, even doctors and influencers fall for it. Medical training teaches us a lot about biology and pharmacology, but not always about media literacy. So sometimes outdated guidelines or catchy wellness trends sneak back into the conversation. What's wild is how sticky these myths are. Once something sounds simple and logical, fat is bad, vitamins are good, water is life, it's hard to unlearn it. The brain loves shortcuts, and marketing knows exactly how to take advantage of that. So let me ask you, do you still hear doctors or influencers repeat this stuff? The drink 8 glasses of water rule, or the take your daily multivitamin. Drop your experiences in the comments because I want to see which myths are still floating around your feeds, and maybe we'll bust them together next time. You know what's fascinating? Even when we know a health myth has been debunked, people still cling to it like it's the last lifeboat on the Titanic. And honestly, it's not because we're stupid, it's because we're human. There's this thing called confirmation bias. Our brain's built in, yes, man. Once we believe something, we tend to look for information that supports it and ignore anything that doesn't. So if you've been told for years that vitamin C keeps you from getting sick, every sniffle you don't get after drinking orange juice feels like proof. The times you do get sick, your brain quietly hits the delete key. It's the same way people in economics believe myths like debt is always bad. It feels right emotionally, the story makes sense, but it's not that simple. Health advice works the same way. The version that feels true usually beats the version that is true, at least until you look under the hood. Then there's authority bias, our tendency to believe someone just because they sound confident or look like they know what they're talking about. If a random person on TikTok says, drink more water, it flushes out toxins, you might roll your eyes. But if a guy in a lab coat says it, suddenly we're like, wow, doctor knows best. Spoiler, sometimes that doctor got their credentials from YouTube University. And let's not forget the placebo effect, one of the most powerful examples of how belief shapes biology. If you believe something will help you, even if it's a sugar pill, your body can respond as if it's real medicine. That doesn't mean myths are harmless, though. It just shows how much our expectations drive our experiences. We're wired to feel better when we think we're doing something proactive. Emotionally, we crave control. The world, and especially our bodies, can be unpredictable. Let's offer simple, comforting rules: drink more water, avoid gluten, take this supplement. It's neat, it's actionable, and it gives us a sense of power. The truth, though, real health science is often messy, full of depends, and nobody likes depends. We like do this, get that. Plus, myths spread socially. Your aunt shares that immune-boosting smoothie recipe. Your gym buddy swears by cold showers for testosterone. And suddenly it's not just advice, it's identity. Arguing against it can feel like arguing with the person themselves. That's why people get defensive when you question their health routines. It's not just about facts, it's about feelings. Now let's talk critical thinking in medicine, because the antidote to bad advice isn't more advice, it's better thinking. The best mental model you can build is this: separate what feels true from what's actually tested. Before believing a claim, ask 3 questions. Who benefits if I believe this? What's the actual evidence, not the headline? Does it fit with what we already know about the body? If those questions feel uncomfortable, good, that's your skeptical muscles working out. Critical thinking isn't about being cynical, it's about being curious and cautious at the same time. And hey, even I've fallen for health trends before. I once tried one of those immune shots that cost more than my entire lunch. Did it work? Probably not. Did I feel like I was doing something good for myself? Absolutely. That's the psychology in action, the comforting illusion of control. So the next time someone confidently tells you, I haven't been sick in years because I start every morning with celery juice, take a breath, smile, ask questions. Maybe share an actual study or two, but don't expect instant conversion. Belief is sticky stuff. Have you ever argued with someone who just won't drop a health myth? Tell me how that went, because I guarantee we've all been there. Let's talk about what the real science actually says, because when you start looking at the data, you realize that some of our most popular health tips have about as much evidence behind them as a horoscope. Let's start with the classic: drink 8 glasses of water a day. Sounds reasonable, right? Hydration is good. But the origin of that rule: a 1945 government report that said adults need roughly 2.5 liters of water per day, including the water found in food. Somewhere along the line, people skipped that last part and decided you needed 8 glasses on top of everything else. Boom, instant myth. Modern research from places like the National Academies and Mayo Clinic now says the right amount of water depends on your size, activity, and environment. You don't need to chug water all day like a competitive camel. In fact, overhydration can be dangerous. It dilutes electrolytes and can cause something called hyponatremia, which is basically when your sodium levels drop so low your brain gets confused. So yeah, if your urine looks like crystal clear bottled water, you might be too hydrated. Then there's the fan favorite multivitamin. Walk down any pharmacy aisle and you'll think you've stumbled into Willy Wonka's lab: gummy vitamins, silver formulas, immune blends, the works. But when scientists looked at the big picture, the sparkle started to fade. A 2018 meta-analysis in the Cochrane database and multiple reviews by the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force found that for most healthy adults, taking daily multivitamins does not lower your risk of heart disease, cancer, or dying earlier. In other words, if you're eating a balanced diet, those pills are more about expensive pee than improved health. Here's an analogy Gary would love. Taking vitamin C to prevent colds is like buying lottery tickets to pay your rent. Sure, someone might get lucky, but you probably shouldn't build your budget around it. And then there's the famous always finish your antibiotics rule. For decades, doctors told patients to finish every pill, no matter what. The logic made sense. Stop too early and bacteria could survive and mutate into resistant strains. But newer research shows that longer isn't always better. The World Health Organization and recent studies in the BMJ now say that for many infections, shorter courses can be just as effective and reduce resistance risk. So why haven't we updated the advice? Because medicine moves slower than the internet. Guidelines take time to change and old habits die hard, especially when they were drilled into generations of patients and doctors alike. It's a good reminder that debunking health advice isn't about proving people wrong. It's about evolving as we learn more. Here's what's important to understand when you're reading about health studies. Science doesn't deal in absolute truths. It deals in probabilities. One small study might find a benefit, another might not, and the truth usually lies somewhere in between. That's why meta-analysis, big reviews of many studies, are the gold standard. They smooth out the noise and show the overall trend, but that nuance doesn't fit in a headline. May be helpful depending on dosage and context, doesn't sell magazines. Scientists discover miracle nutrient? Does. That's how scientific studies on health myths get twisted. Not because the data is bad, but because the storytelling is. The takeaway: don't panic when old advice gets updated. Science is supposed to change. That's how progress works. If your doctor says, hey, remember that thing we used to recommend? Turns out it's not as effective as we thought. That's not flip-flopping. That's honesty. So let me ask you, should doctors be more upfront when old advice turns out to be wrong? Or does that make people lose trust in medicine? I'm curious where you stand, because personally, I think transparency builds trust. Even if it means saying, yeah, we got that one wrong. Let's get real for a second. If you've ever bought a detox tea, a collagen gummy, or a miracle vitamin because someone on Instagram swore it changed their life, you're not alone. And before you feel bad about it, understand this: the system is built for that reaction. Because when it comes to medical misinformation, The problem isn't a secret cabal of shadowy villains plotting your next impulse purchase. It's something much simpler and much more effective. It's capitalism doing what capitalism does, rewarding whoever keeps you buying. See, confusion is profitable. If you're not sure what works, you'll try everything. And the wellness industry knows this better than anyone. Supplement companies, detox brands, and biohacking influencers have built an entire economy out of uncertainty. Let's take detox teas, the poster child for wellness marketing myths. These products promise to flush toxins, reset your system, or jumpstart weight loss. Translation? Laxatives and caffeine. You're not detoxing. You're just dehydrating in a fancy package. But the marketing works because it gives people a sense of control, a feeling that they're doing something healthy. That emotional payoff is worth more than the product itself. Then there are miracle vitamins, supplements that claim to boost immunity, improve skin, or balance hormones. The data, spotty at best, but they're sold with glossy labels, clinically proven buzzwords, and testimonials that sound sciencey enough to convince even smart people. And since supplements are regulated as food, not medicine, they don't need to prove efficacy before hitting shelves. Even parts of the healthcare system unintentionally benefit from the same dynamic. Think about unnecessary tests, scans, or procedures. Defensive medicine doing more just to be safe often results in overdiagnosis, overtreatment, and higher costs. It's not usually greed, it's structure. In a system where billing rewards volume, not outcomes, doing more makes more money. Gary would say it's the same way financial markets reward short-term gains over long-term stability. The incentive isn't truth, it's transactions. And in health, that means whoever tells the most convincing story, not necessarily the most accurate one, gets the biggest paycheck. And boy, do stories sell. The influencer with the glowing skin and smoothie recipe, she's not necessarily lying, she's selling an identity. The message isn't this product works, it's you can be like me if you buy this. That's the emotional hook behind most health industry profits, aspiration disguised as information. Meanwhile, scientists and doctors are out here saying things like, according to a 2020 randomized controlled trial with a small sample size, you can guess which message spreads faster. Misinformation travels at the speed of virality because it sells certainty. Science, on the other hand, sells probability, and probability doesn't trend on TikTok. A 2018 study in Science actually quantified this. False news spreads 6 times faster on social media than true news, mostly because it triggers stronger emotions like surprise and disgust. And health misinformation hits both. Big Pharma doesn't want you to know this one simple trick. Boom, instant clicks, instant cash. Now, I'm not saying every wellness influencer is a snake oil salesman. Some genuinely want to help people. But when helping becomes a business model, lines blur fast because the incentive isn't help until they're healthy. It's keep them buying until the next trend. The same logic applies to biohacking fads and longevity supplements. Many are built on half-truths, a sprinkle of legit science, then a mountain of marketing fluff. It's like mixing a teaspoon of kale into a gallon of soda and calling it a health drink. So next time you see a product that promises a miracle, remember if the claim sounds too good to be true, it's probably just good marketing. But I want to hear your stories. Have you ever bought a health product that turned out totally useless? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. Bonus points if it came in rose gold packaging or claimed to optimize your cellular function. You know what doesn't get talked about enough? The consequences of medical myths, not the clickbait kind, but the quiet everyday damage they do. It's easy to laugh at detox teas and miracle gummies, but behind those jokes are real people losing time, money, and peace of mind. Let me tell you about a patient I once met. We'll call her Sarah. She came in exhausted, anxious, and convinced her body was toxic. She'd been following an influencer's natural cleans for months, no processed food, daily supplements, a colon detox kit, and about a gallon of water before breakfast. She wasn't just tired. She was dangerously dehydrated, her electrolytes were out of whack, and she'd spent close to 2,000 hours a year chasing a version of health that was slowly making her sick. That's the part people don't see. Bad health advice doesn't just drain your wallet, it steals your energy and your trust in your own body. The wellness industry is great at selling more supplements, more tracking, more routines, but sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is less. Over-supplementing can overload your liver and kidneys. Over-hydrating like Sarah can throw off your sodium balance. Even over-tracking calories, steps, sleep, macros can quietly feed health anxiety, where every tiny symptom feels catastrophic because you're always scanning for danger. There's data to back this up. A 2021 study in Frontiers in Psychology found that excessive health monitoring can actually increase anxiety and reduce life satisfaction. It's the paradox of modern wellness. We have more tools to optimize our health than ever, and somehow we're more stressed about it than ever. Then there's the financial cost. Americans spend over $30 billion a year on supplements, most of which don't provide measurable benefits for healthy adults. That's billions of dollars that could go toward fresh food, gym memberships, therapy, or honestly vacations. Because stress reduction sometimes is more for your immune system than any pill ever could. And don't forget the risks of bad health advice when it delays real care. I've seen patients skip prescribed medications because they read online that natural cures work better. One man tried to treat his high blood pressure with beet juice and turmeric instead of his prescribed meds. By the time he came in, his blood pressure was sky high and he was 1 ER visit away from a stroke. He wasn't ignorant. He was missiled. That's the cost of misinformation. It preys on good intentions. And it's not just physical harm. There's a deep emotional toll. When people try every trending fix and still don't feel better, They start to blame themselves. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. It's heartbreaking because the problem isn't them. It's the endless noise around them. It's also exhausting. Trying to be perfectly healthy in an environment that profits off your insecurity is like trying to tidy your house while someone keeps dumping boxes on your doorstep. You can't win because the game is rigged to keep you striving, not arriving. That's why I tell people the goal isn't perfect health. The goal is informed health, knowing what matters, what doesn't, and when to stop listening to the noise. So yeah, myths might sound harmless. Just a glass of lemon water here, a collagen powder there. But when they stack up, they create a culture of constant pressure and quiet panic. The human cost isn't just in dollars or side effects. It's in sleepless nights, self-doubt, and the erosion of trust in real science. And that's what really keeps me up at night. Do you think we talk enough about the mental cost of misinformation, or are we still too busy selling wellness to stop and think about what it's doing to us? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your take. After all this talk about myths, misinformation, and marketing magic tricks, you might be wondering, how do we actually figure out what's true in health? Because it can feel like everyone online is an expert with a ring light and an affiliate code. The good news, there's a fix. And it's not about memorizing every medical journal. It's about learning to think like a scientist without losing your sanity. Here's a simple framework I use when I'm evaluating health claims. Call it your wellness BS detector. First, who said it? Check the credentials. Are they a licensed healthcare professional or just someone who looks great in scrubs on Instagram? Because let's be honest, confidence and credibility are not the same thing. If someone calls themselves a certified detoxologist, run real medicine is boringly specific, MD, DO, RD, PhD, MP, the alphabet soup matters. Second, what evidence backs it? Anecdotes are stories, not studies. Real evidence means randomized controlled trials, meta-analyses, or at least consensus from reputable bodies like the CDC, WHO, or IH. Remember, one study can say anything. That's why we look for patterns across many studies. If you ever see a headline like "Scientists Discover Miracle Cure for Aging," ask which scientists. How big was the study? Was it in humans or was it just one lucky rat? Because no offense to that rat, but I'm not rearranging my life based on his lab results. Third, what's their incentive? This one's straight out of Gary's playbook. Always ask, who profits if I believe this? Are they trying to sell you something, gain followers, or push a brand? There's nothing wrong with making money, but it's a red flag when financial incentives replace honesty. Transparency matters more than charisma. Fourth, is it consistent with broader science? If one influencer says everyone should avoid gluten, but every major nutrition body says otherwise, trust the consensus. Science evolves, but it rarely swings to extremes overnight. Trends make headlines, truth survive peer review. And here's the mindset shift that really matters. Be skeptical, not cynical. Skepticism asks, what cynicism says, everything's fake. One helps you learn, the other keeps you stuck. Healthy skepticism is like sunscreen. It protects you without blocking all the light. Now let's talk about the elephant in the search bar. Google. I get it. You feel a weird pain. You Google it. And 3 clicks later, you're convinced you have 12 rare diseases and a haunted pancreas. Don't do that to yourself. Search smartly. Use sites that cite evidence. Think Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, or PubMed summaries. Avoid anonymous forums where every answer ends in, "My cousin tried this and survived." That's critical health thinking in action, slowing down, cross-checking, and refusing to let panic or popularity decide what you believe. Because here's the truth, the internet isn't going to get less confusing, but you can get better at navigating it. You don't need to become a doctor. You just need to think like one. Look for balance, context, and proof. And don't underestimate the power of saying, that sounds interesting. Let me check the source. So here's your simple call to action. Next time someone gives you health advice, online, at the gym, or at a family dinner, ask these 3 questions. Who's saying it? What's the evidence? Who benefits if I believe it? Those 3 questions could save you money, stress, and quite possibly your sanity. And now I'm curious, what's one health myth you used to believe before you learned better? Drop it in the comments. Let's build a list together, because busting myths isn't just about debunking nonsense. It's about reclaiming your health with facts that actually hold up.